So this part we borrowed from a TED Talk on how we work. There's 3 billion people working in the world today, and about 40% of them would actually say they're happy at work. That means that about 1.8 billion, almost 2 billion people are not happy at work. Organizations that have a lot of happy employees, wait for it, have 3 times the revenue growth compared to organizations where that's not true. And if you look at employee turnover, it's half that of organizations that have a lot of unhappy employees. So the miracle thing is, you don't have to spend a lot of money to make this happen. It's not about ping pong balls, massages, and pet walking, although that might be nice. It's not about the perks. It's all about how they're treated by their leaders and by the people they work with. So today's webinar on digital transformation and change management is about that. It's about how can we treat our people better so they're happy at work. We know you've heard this before and it holds true. Change is the only constant. Still, we're humans and we have limits. UNICEF currently is undergoing a series of transformations right now, today, as you watch this video. We're rethinking, replanning, redoing so that we reach our goals faster, better, and most importantly, with greater impact for children and adolescents. We have developed amazing new ways to work with businesses, new financing models. We're supporting groundbreaking movements of young people. We're reshaping, really, our new strategic plan, and we're basically digitally transforming everywhere post-pandemic. And my personal favorite, as you may guess, we are also changing how we engage every human on earth to support the cause of children and young people. So if you work here, you're in a change process. And you are UNICEF's most important asset. You, our staff. You're the engine of this beacon of hope, of change, and of results worldwide. So before we start, thank you so much for your work. To help you have greater success and spend less money while nurturing happier teams, we put together this webinar. We also did it because it offers great strategies on how to practice UNICEF's values, CRITA, care, respect, integrity, trust, and accountability, especially in a period of history when we're all dealing with unknowns, figuring out work-life balance, and needing to take greater care of our mental and physical health, as well as greater care of our teams. So if you're a director, a manager, a team leader, or working projects with others, stay tuned because there will be resources at the end of the webinar made available. By the way, my name is Julio Rosa. I'm the program manager of the Supporter Engagement Strategy. I want you to be the happiest humans ever because happy colleagues equals happy supporters. So to start us down this yellow brick road, I've invited Kate. This is Kate. 25 years of experience in learning and change management environments. Over 12 years leading enterprise-level digital transformation. That means the entire organization. Worked at PwC, Blue Wolf, Acumen, all 3 systems integrator for Salesforce. She's a change manager. That means people first. Full stop. In addition to that, she's an advocate for education in children. Do we not love her? She also works out like a mad woman, really healthy. Founder and CEO of 5 to Flow, a global collective that builds integrative organizational wellness solutions designed to achieve and sustain peak performance. That means happy people doing happy things, making the world a happy place.
Why am I here today to talk to you? And why am I holding a watch in my hand? Many years ago, my father bought me this analog watch. And I want to go through a digital transformation right before your eyes because I was asked by UNICEF to talk to you about digital transformation and change management. This is an easy example of what digital transformation is, and you probably know many reasons why this is important. First and foremost, digital transformation enables organizations to compete better and to serve their stakeholders better. In the case of UNICEF, we want leadership and employees around the world within UNICEF to be competitive in the marketplace and to actually enjoy your job. We're here to talk about change management across a digital transformation to enable you to better adopt the digital tools that your UNICEF team has invested in for you. Digital transformation is for you, for your supporters, and so you may better serve children around the world. Before we jump too deeply into this, I want to first say thank you so much for being here, and thank you for serving children around the world. Children are my passion. I started my career as a high school English teacher. And since I've been working with children around the world, I've been so honored to get to engage with UNICEF on a couple of different projects and see how you need to work on focusing on people first. So I was asked by UNICEF to talk about change management and how to focus on the people within UNICEF first in order to drive the most positive changes across the organization and create a positive experience for your supporters and your children who benefit from your services. So thank you for being here. We're going to jump in first and talk a little bit about change management and the 5 core elements that we've instituted at 5 to Flow to support organizations to see that change management is far more than training. I bet each of you on this call can think about things in your life you've changed that had nothing to do with training. It encompasses 5 critical steps to drive change. That is, first, driving awareness. Second, driving desire. Third, driving knowledge. Fourth, creating a space where people are able to execute. And fifth, reinforcing that change ongoing. What I just cited to you is an acronym, ADKAR, founded by an organization called ProSci, who's worked with thousands of organizations over thousands of projects to see that change management is necessary for organizations to be successful with any kind of change. In the case of digital transformation specifically, 70% fail unless they choose to focus on a change management effort, a constructed change management effort, focused on bringing people along individually and as teams and as the organization as a whole in order to adopt the new technologies and tools. So let's first talk about the 5 core elements and how they're related to change management. And then I want to also provide a tool for you that we're going to talk about throughout the series on how to drive people into the change quadrant that I'll explain now. Imagine, if you will, an x-axis and a y-axis. On the x-axis is the propensity of risk you undertake as you go through a change. On the y-axis is your propensity to change and how much you've absorbed that change. In the upper left quadrant, we have people who have embraced change, who are reaping the rewards and benefits of that change. In the upper right quadrant, we have the employees who have embraced change but are still experiencing the risks of that change, and we need to move them to the left. In the lower left quadrant, we have the employees who are resisting change and are comfortably living in that zone. We call that the comfort zone. In the lower right quadrant, we have the people who have resisted change and are experiencing the negative consequences of that. So our goal throughout the course of this series is to talk about the 5 core elements that 5 to Flow has developed to support organizational change and aligning those to ADKAR, which all relate to the first of the 5 core elements, which is people. The 5 core elements are people, culture, process, technology, and analytics. As we reflect back on ADKAR, all of the components of ADKAR are related to people and how they engage in the other 4 of the core elements. So we'll walk you through how ADKAR connects to the 5 core elements and how all of that connects to driving change and positive adoption at UNICEF. Let's talk about the concept of people and what I mean when I say that. All of the employees inside the organization at any level, the leadership team, the executives, the board, all of your supporters, all of your stakeholders, and the children around the world encompass the people of UNICEF. Now, if we start with the employees first, I want to share an amazing quote with you written by one of the global evangelists of Salesforce, one of the largest digital transformation firms in the world. Tiffany Bova, along in a study with Forbes, said, "Research has shown that the fastest way to get your customers to love your brand is to get people to love their jobs." So, we're going to start with people. Further in that study, they suggest that starting with employee engagement first and employee experience first is what drives customer experience. In the case of UNICEF, that would be your supporter experience. That is then what drives revenue. In your case, getting more donations so you can better serve children around the world. So let's recap that. Digital transformation company, largest in the world, does not say to start with technology. They say to start with your employees. So UNICEF, what are we going to do to start with your people first? If you don't believe this particular statistic, let's talk about the financials around starting with employees. Did you know that employee engagement and lack thereof costs the U.S. economy billions of dollars a year? The happier your employees, the happier your stakeholders and supporters, which then drives donations, advocacy, volunteers, all of your supporters engaging with you to successfully drive forward with programs to meet your mission. That is why we want to start with people. So let me tell you a little story. I've worked with hundreds of organizations, many of them global, and as I've traveled the world, continuing to deploy technology systems for organizations who refuse to follow change management and adoption methodologies to have a successful digital transformation, that gets back to the 70% who fail. UNICEF, do you want to be part of the 30% that succeed? If so, we need to think about change management and adoption in a completely different way. It is not just training. It is starting with a vision, with a strategy, with tactics, with processes that you then enable your people to adopt. You have to think about them, what their needs are, and drive that second part of the ADKAR model, which is desire. How do you get me to want to switch from my father's watch to this Apple Watch? What is the benefit to me personally to make that switch? It may sound monumental to think about every single employee at UNICEF and why they would want to adopt, but it's doable. I've done it with hundreds of organizations. I've driven that strategy, and I want to help you do it today. Our second concept, leaders of UNICEF, is culture. What do you think about the culture of UNICEF? Does it promote autonomy and mastery among your people, or is it suffocating? Can people help invent the way they do their jobs the best way they know how? Are they afraid to adopt digital technologies because somebody's looking over their shoulder? Or are you supporting them in finding their flow at work? The people of UNICEF are what make the culture. You help determine what the culture is at UNICEF. Why is culture important in digital transformation, and what does it mean for change management? It means that you no longer permit that lower left quadrant of the comfort zone. You want to bring people up into that reward and recognition zone. You recognize that there are risks to change, and you proactively mitigate those risks. You think about them in advance, and you plan for them so that you can move people from the upper right into the upper left with reward and recognition programs and the enablement to do their jobs in the digital age. Did you know that with empowerment, 67% of employees will go above and beyond without you even asking? Did you know that 70% of employees rank empowerment as critical to their engagement? Now remember, when we were talking about people, engagement is critical for your organization to thrive. it's critical for your supporters to engage with you. So now, in a culture where we are empowering our employees to do their jobs, we're also enabling them to find flow. The data suggests also, if you want to think about this from the outside in, 66% of buyers, in your case donors, engage with a brand based on their culture and what they perceive of your culture. So if we're taking this from the top and you've created happy employees who've created a successful brand, you're that much more likely to have people engage with you. You're that much more likely to have people leverage the tools you've provided. And you've created a culture of transparency and autonomy and engagement that is going to help your people thrive. So let me tell another little story. If you've never been to Seattle, there's a famous market there called Pike's Place Fish Market. Nobody thinks fish is something I would talk about in the concept of culture, but I encourage you to read the book. It was written many years ago, but all of the principles still apply today. A fish market was about to go under. A new owner came in and recognized that the culture of that fish market was one of toil and work, one of lack of processes that have been re-engineered, lack of engagement with each other and with the customer. So what they did at Pike's Place Fish Market is instituted a new culture, starting with choosing your attitude. So leaders of UNICEF, have you chosen your attitude to drive positive engagement and empowerment inside of UNICEF? How do you play with your supporters? You're an organization that supports children around the world. Children love to play. We learn so much through play, and we learn so much through having fun. We're far more engaged, and remember what engagement does. We're far more empowered to then make their day, the third principle of FISH. If you are focused on making the day of your supporters, and you're leveraging digital tools to do so, how much more supporters can we gain at UNICEF? Let's talk about the fourth concept, which is being present. When you're at work, actively engaged, and able to get into flow because you're in a culture of empowerment, you're going to drive that engagement that you desperately need in order to have your supporters engage. So what we've covered so far is engaged employees drive engaged supporters, which will drive donations and supporter engagement to drive more services to children around the world. Are we starting to get a glimpse on why change management's important? We've driven awareness of why the change is important. We're now driving desire toward that change. The third core element that we focus on at 5 to Flow is process. What do I mean by process? It is your way of working, how you actually get your job done. So when you think about digital transformation, the way we do our jobs change. One of the most important things about updating the actual process as we move forward with a new technology is to think about how a process we write inside of our organization aligns to how people want to engage with us from the outside. So, your supporter network, how they want to work with you, is critically important as we rewrite a process. Organizations who rewrite processes or re-engineer them, as you may hear, prior to enabling them through digital technologies are at a growth rate of 18% higher than those who do not. So, if you're interested in revenue growth through donations and having more funding for your programs, we really need to take a look at process. Again, as part of change management, as a component within digital transformation, we're not just looking at training. We're not just thinking about communication. We're actually changing the process itself prior to enabling it in a technology tool to meet those metrics and stay consistent across the organization with how we engage with supporters. So leaders of UNICEF, when is the last time you rewrote your processes? When is the last time you looked at the experience from the outside in so that your employees and your teammates are actually executing the ways of working aligned to how people want to work with you from the outside. So let me tell you another little story. I told you a few moments ago that I've traveled the world to do digital transformations globally. Some of those organizations bought the most state-of-the-art technologies and then enabled an outdated process on them. So, think about this. When you moved from a house phone landline, where you had that fun old rotary dialer, to a flip phone and now to a smartphone, did you immediately download an app onto your smartphone so that you could continue that rotary dialing process? Probably not. I put it on my phone as a joke just to demonstrate this to CIOs and technology supporters around the world. Please don't make me take your outdated process. Some of you watching may not even know what a rotary dialer is. So we'll have the doodler take care of that and maybe show you what an old rotary dial phone looked like. All right, we're now on to the fourth core element, technology. Within the realm of digital transformation, technology, as you know now, is only 1/5 of the equation. It may seem silly for me to talk about technology and change management as one of the core elements, but choosing the right technology is critical. Having said that, technology is only a tool. It is there for us to think about your people and their skills, their awareness of why you're changing, the desire to actually want to change, driven by a culture of engagement and empowerment. So, interestingly, Mark Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce, which you use at UNICEF, says it himself in this way. What is the vision for what I want to achieve? That is the first question that must be asked, because if you aren't crystal clear on that, good luck trying to get there. So the CEO of a massive global digital transformation firm believes vision is most important. He's not even pointing out the tool itself being important. He's pointing out that having a vision, setting a strategy, putting a change management plan into place, which he talks about further on in this article, that change management is critical to the adoption of Salesforce. Everyone inside that organization knows that, and so we want everyone inside the UNICEF organization to know that as well. Digital transformation is only successful, as we know, in 30% those organizations who institute a change management methodology. So the data is there. All we need to do now is go back through those change quadrants and think about the comfort zone when it comes to technology. If you're moving from one technology to another and the one they're using today is comfortable, we need to think about how to move them into that upper left quadrant of reward and recognition for the new technology. All of the successful organizations I've worked with throughout the world over the last decade understand that sometimes people go to that upper right quadrant, have accepted the risks, and then we need to move them over to that upper left to see that the positive reward and recognition and the risk mitigation plans were put into place before we implemented that technology. Those living in that bottom right quadrant who are now resisting the change and experiencing the consequences are also part of a change management approach. You may have heard in those four quadrants the carrot and the stick. So, UNICEF leaders, you have invested a lot of money in digital transformation. You've invested a lot of money in the Salesforce tool and many other tools that you're leveraging to better engage supporters. So with that, in the change management journey of driving awareness, desire, knowledge, and ability, we need to think about the ability to use Salesforce or other digital tools in the right way. A lot of people are afraid of using new technologies because they are in an environment that doesn't promote empowerment. They're afraid of people seeing what they're doing, and they either live in that comfort zone or accept those negative consequences. So as leaders, those negative consequences need to be worse for an employee to experience than the risks that they would accept and the rewards that they would receive for moving to that upper left quadrant. So now that we've been through all of those components, let's now talk about analytics. So the concept of analytics within the 5 core elements and thinking about change management and ADKAR, how it ties all together. In the 5 stages of focusing on people first, we want to make sure people have the right skills, metrics to know that they're successful, and all the tools and resources they need to do their jobs. So for each of you at UNICEF, how do you measure your success? How do you know you're doing a great job? And how do you know you're providing the right tools and resources for your employees so they can better engage with supporters, better provide programs for children? You have tons of metrics inside of UNICEF, and I'd like to talk about how those better drive change and adoption for digital transformation. It's where you come in the letter R in ADKAR, which is reinforcement. The concept of leveraging data in an organization is to provide the best experience possible based on what we actually know and also can potentially assume about your supporters and your employees and what type of experience they want to have, what types of experiences they are having, and how you can predict and create the experience you actually want them to have. So if we're able to use analytics in the technology tools you've deployed to see how well people are using them from an adoption perspective, we can then leverage that data in turn to create a better experience for them, which will then create a better experience for your supporters. Taking that one step further, a better experience for your donors who want to know what their money is doing for UNICEF, for the children around the world, and how what they're contributing to your organization supports effective programs around the world that you can also analyze in these systems and share that information back out. We can actually measure how engaged your supporters are when they work with you. We can actually measure how engaged your employees are. With the analytics there in place in a culture of engagement and empowerment, these no longer become Big Brother or the stick approach in that bottom right quadrant. We're actually bringing it up to provide positive rewards and recognitions in this upper left quadrant where we can see all the successes. On the flip side, we can measure the risks because of what we're measuring in the tools to see how well people are adopting and predict if we did something wrong with the process reengineering or with the enablement in the tools that we've created, and shift agilely how the tools work so they work better for your people. So in this case, we are now all the way through the 5 core elements. We've talked about your people, we've talked about your culture, we've talked about your processes, your technologies, and now your analytics. How these 5 core elements tie together and why I came up with the name 5 to Flow is in an organization for individuals, teams, and the organization to be truly successful and achieve peak performance, you have to be able to get into flow. What is flow? Flow is the concept of people being able to engage in a specific activity deeply with passion and purpose, with curiosity, and autonomy and mastery. So in the case of looking at all 5 core elements, how they play into a successful digital transformation, and how looking at the change across each of the 5 core elements, how they connect will then drive you to that 30% of successful digital transformations every single time. ADKAR, and why I love it, is a very easy acronym for you to think about tools you can use as a leader, and the 4 quadrants to think about where each of the people on your team sit when you do a change. I also want to share a couple of statistics about analytics. Organizations who use effective digital transformations create a positive and consistent experience. So for me, as a supporter of UNICEF, I want to have a similar experience no matter who I talk to at UNICEF, and digital transformation enables that. A recent study from MuleSoft, one of Salesforce's digital transformation tools, reports that 75% of supporters and customers of organizations want to have a consistent experience working with a brand. So as we talk about your employees loving being at UNICEF and loving their jobs, That drives that positive experience and that positive culture and that positive brand for supporters to want to further engage with UNICEF. All right, leaders of UNICEF. As a quick recap, we want to think about how we keep your employees in the upper left quadrant of change, which is embracing the change and having a positive experience. So what is your role in that, and what are some quick tips I can give you to be the absolute best ambassador you can to positive change and digital transformation? First and foremost, it's understanding a change model, ADKAR. Your role is to help employees become aware, actually want to do the change, have the knowledge they need to do it, have the ability to execute, and be reinforced by you leading by example and embracing the change yourselves. When you think about the 5 core elements, people, culture, process, technology, and analytics, I want you to consider all 5 of those for each phase of ADKAR. So in each of those stages, here are a couple of questions that you can ask yourself on awareness. What is changing and why? And how have I communicated that to my team? How has the executive leadership communicated that to me? And what questions have I asked to drive communication and ensure that the why, starting with the why, is fully executed and that we understand that vision, as Mark Benioff pointed out. Second is desire. What did you consider and what can you consider to actually address the what's in it from me for your employees on individual change, team change, and organizational change? So with UNICEF, how can you drive desire? How well have you gotten to know each of your employees and what motivates them so that you can help support a positive change journey? Knowledge. Have you set expectations with your employees so that they know what they're supposed to do, when, why, where? If you've driven that awareness through a communication plan, if you've driven that desire through one-on-one and team-based coaching, and now you've set expectations and goals for that adoption, we can then move to the ability component, which is the training and resources, tools that they need to actually execute on the adoption of the tool. Last but not least, as a leader, how are you reinforcing the change? Have you embraced it yourself? And if you've not, let's be honest about it. Understand our own need for awareness and desire, our own need for understanding what our leaders expect of us. And if you can't do that, let's think about our supporters and think about what they need from you. How can you go through the ADKAR model as a set of questions that we can provide you today to take action immediately and be able to drive that positive transformation, living yourself in that upper left quadrant, reaping the rewards of these new digital tools, providing empowerment to your employees, deeper engagement with your supporters, and ultimately driving more funding into UNICEF so that you have value-based activities to achieve your mission. I'm so passionate about your mission at UNICEF. I'm so hopeful that you'll embrace some of these tools and resources so that you can drive change among your teams and for yourself so that your digital transformations will continue to be successful and you'll continue to change the world and one life of a child at a time. Every child that you help change is just part of your transformation as well. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to open it up for Q&A now and have some more conversations with other employees at UNICEF to see how they've been embracing change and positively moving forward your digital transformation.